I think, can you see the slide, sir?
Yeah, very much. Good. Thank you.
Yes. Right. So today I'll be discussing about just hardly few slides. Within 5 minutes I'll finish because Dr. Narendranathan has made my job easy. And being from a legal background, doing my PhD in law from National Law School, I'll be focusing about the recent development of legal issues. And first and the foremost, before I start, I would like to put the perspective in place. In law, man is guilty when he violates the rights of others. In ethics, it is just he thinks about violating somebody else is wrong. So the ethics plays a more important role than the law. But however, since we are not following the law, following the ethics, the law will come into picture. So impaired judgment, basically here, the title of my presentation is basically the loss of reasoning power. That's where the capacity comes in. So persons with mental illness who has lost his capacity, there we have to be very, very careful. Persons with mental illness, basically, and also the intellectual disability people where they are unable to make any choice, children and adolescent, unconscious patient, comatose patients, and delirium, dementia, or altered sensorium. These are the people who have impaired judgment, and we need to be very careful when we do any kind of trial or experiment on them. See, one of the study which we recently published from NIMANS, and I was the guide of our student, and this is a study where we did a dummy trial for patients who were admitted in NIMANS. More than 100 patients were studied, and we asked whether would you like to participate in the clinical drug of trial. It's a dummy trial. It's not a real trial. In that, we asked who are the people who want to undergo trial, who do not want to undergo trial. And in the end, when we came to know that the woman, though she is ill or not mentally ill, it is the family members who take decision. And the educated, rich, affluent people refuse to take participation. The people who are going to participate, especially in persons with mental illness, it's basically the lower socioeconomic status. They think the doctors are the best. They will decide, and they give complete autonomy to the doctor to do whatever is the best. So this is the factor influencing participation of psychiatry in patients in clinical trial. This is a dummy trial which was passed, and this is a study which is available. And currently what is happening in this perspective, when we are doing any kind of research in so-called impaired judgment, we have to be very careful and forget about persons with mental illness. There has been a gross human rights violations. So for that reason, what is happening is the Supreme Court in 2012 came very heavily on the government, telling that we have to now form law. So slowly over a period of time, medical ethics have been read into the law. The best example is we have taken a medical oath, that is Hippocratic oath, telling that we will provide care in any kind of emergency situation. But unfortunately, we never did that. The Supreme Court came heavily in one of the judgment telling that the doctor cannot say no in emergency situation. So that's the medical law, medical ethics read into the law. Similarly, what is happening is we had ethical guidelines from ICMR from 1980s only, 1989, that from that time it started as a guideline. Later it came in 2018, 2006, and then 17 it was released, 18 it has come up. But unfortunately, we don't follow. We find Indians are so innovative, they find a way to overcome that. So in this regard, what happened was the law has been read, these ethics have been read into the law now. The first and the foremost is recent amendment which has occurred in Drugs and Cosmetic Act of 1940. 2019, a new drugs and clinical trial rules have come in. But unfortunately, there was a bill pending in the parliament telling that Clinical Drugs Trial Act, but a bill that was not presented, but they came up with the rules, amending the rules, that is Schedule Y has been removed. So this applied to all new drugs, all investigational new drugs, clinical trial, bioequivalence study, bioavailability study, and ethics committee. Let me remind you, it's ethics committee. The problem was many private establishments or medical colleges or even hospitals started having their own ethics committee just for the fulfilling the requirement. But they were not actually the ethics committee, they were working. It was on paper. So hence, now the ethics committee needs to be regulated under this rule. If you don't follow the rule of new drugs and clinical trial of 2019, there is a possibility of penalty. And this ethics committee, whenever the permission is given, it applies for 5 years. And if they don't follow the rules and regulations as per the clinical drug trial, there is a possibility of penalty. And this ethics committee, whenever the permission is given, it applies for 5 years. And if they don't follow the rules and regulations as per the clinical drug trial, there is a possibility of penalty. And this ethics committee, whenever the permission is given, it applies for 5 years. And if they don't follow the rules and regulations as per the clinical drug trial, there is a possibility of penalty. And this ethics committee, whenever the permission is given, it applies for 5 years. And if they don't follow the rules and regulations as per the clinical drug trial, there is a possibility of penalty. And this ethics committee, whenever the permission is given, it applies for 5 years. And if they don't follow the rules and regulations as per the clinical drug trial, there is a possibility of penalty. And this ethics committee, whenever the permission is given, it applies for 5 years. And if they don't follow the rules and regulations as per the clinical drug trial, there is a possibility of penalty. And this ethics they will have to face. And this is which has been published on 19th March 2019. It comes especially in the third schedule of this rule that talks about clinical, basically the informed consent. And the informed consent where a person is unable to give a legally acceptable representative is the word used who can give the consent. But now the issue here is you are following Drugs and Cosmetic Acts, but at the same time you have to follow Mental Health Care Act and also Right to Persons with Disability Act. So children, of course, the parents and the legal guardian play an important role, but this schedule 3 of this new rule tells that mature children and adolescent, the assent form has to be signed wherever it is appropriate. Whenever there is a conflict between the parent and the child, the parent says, we will go ahead with the trial, but the child says, I don't want to go into the trial. The child's assent will be taken very essentially, but unless if it is life and death situation, the consent becomes upward very good. Otherwise, in a simple trial where there is no life and death issue, the child will be taken into the child's consent will be taken into a picture. That is the way that it has been portrayed in the rule. That is how it will be interpreted. Vulnerable population, specifically they have mentioned new chemical entity and new molecular entity is the word they have been used, where audio and video recording is mandatory. It is audio and video recording of giving information, asking questions whether they have understood, what the patient have asked questions and the family members have asked questions, and then the whole recording, signing of the consent, the whole recording has to be preserved. That is what is audio video. But unfortunately, again, the psychiatry has lost the train because in this, they have exempted HIV patient and leprosy patient to come on video. But it would have been good if there was an exemption for persons with mental illness who say, I don't want to be on video. So that would have been better. But anyhow, still we have Mental Health Care Act where the patient's confidentiality from the legislation perspective stands higher pedestal over the rule. So if the patient says that I don't want to be on video and then he's ready to come on audio, fine, that can be recorded. And as the sir has also clearly mentioned, telling that after the e-consent has come up, that is telemedicine guidelines has been published or notified, now the consent can be audio, video, recorded, all those will be legally acceptable now. Coming to the informed consent, table 3 has been mentioned in the rule. It's what the sir has mentioned and it is there and you need to follow those things. And now coming to the last couple of slides, Mental Health Care Act section 99 talks about the research. And it is very clear, 2I of that section 99, subsection 2I clearly says that informed consent, where a person with mental illness who cannot give consent, in such a scenario, you have to take permission from the state authority. Without state authority, you are not going ahead with the study. It's very clearly mentioned in that. That means in a person with mental illness who is severely ill and who is not able to give capacity, who doesn't have capacity to consent, or although he is very passive, he is in a negative state, you cannot go ahead with the consent and take or do the research on them. You have to take state authorities' permission. Next, the legal representative, that's what we call it as nominated representative, will give consent to go ahead with the study. Further, it also clearly says that is what I said, that unable to give free and informed consent and does not resist in participation, there we have to take state authority and NR can give consent. Further, how do you assess that it has to be sent? Wherever you are going to take informed consent with persons with mental illness, where you are going to admit them in 89 or any kind of admission, you are doing inpatient trial, you may have to consider capacity to consent. That is basically section 4 of the Act, comprehension, weighing the risk and communication. And this has been published under section 81. A committee was set up and the committee has given the guidance how to assess the capacity. Use that capacity document before you go ahead with the study. If the patient has capacity, then you will take consent from the patient. If the patient doesn't have capacity, immediately those kind of studies has to go through state authority. If it doesn't, 6 months imprisonment may be there under the Mental Health Care Act. So if you would like to learn more about capacity to consent, a video has been made which is available in the YouTube. If you type Suresh Badadmat, you will get that video, capacity to consent, how the capacity to consent to be addressed, how you are going to assess for a particular task will be explained there. Coming to the last part of my presentation, Right to Persons with Disability Act of 2016 also comes some rules. Wherever you are engaging a patient with a disability, there section 6 clearly says that no persons with a disability shall be subject to any kind of research unless a committee will be formed under RPWD Act. That committee has to give permission to go ahead with the person who has disability. Let's be very clear about that. This is under the RPWD Act. I'm not talking about the rules. I'm talking about the main legislation in Mental Health Care Act and RPWD Act. Now you have to be very clear. You have to take, if you are going to do a person, you are going to do a study in a person with mental illness who doesn't have capacity, Mental Health Care Act will come. If he doesn't have capacity, means he will also come under the RPWD Act. The committee formed under the RPWD Act also to give consent. To conclude, let me be very clear, a man without ethics is a wild beast, loosed upon this world. So hence, we have to be very clear that we have to follow the rules and regulations and also the law. Thank you very much. And if you would like to have any questions, please do ask questions through the chat box. And I'm requesting the organizers whether we can unmute to ask questions or not. Let the Dr. Ashok sir, over to you, sir, for the questions. Can we ask the...
Yeah, I mean, you could take the questions, certainly. Thank you so much, Dr. Suresh. You can certainly take it from the chat box, or you can ask them to unmute and ask questions. Perfectly fine. We just probably have a 10 minutes time left for it. Yeah, sure.
Okay, sir. The one of the question is said that there is, even in the clinical phenomena, where is in inpatient or outpatient, this is the word you have used, that the terms exculpatory, basically the word which has been used by telling that getting away with the responsibility of a researcher or a clinician. Dr. Narendra Nath sir, should it be used only in research or even it is also applicable in clinical? That is the question has been asked in the one of the question. So please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think in the treatment, we don't say that suppose there is an endoscopy and we don't say that if you develop any complication of endoscopy, I will pay for the expenses involved. We just say that the chance of perforation is about 2 in 500. That's all we say, that there is no obligation on our part to, once we inform the person that these are the complications involved, the person accepts it, but there is no obligation on our part to pay for the complications that are involved. But if the endoscopy is done as part of the research, and if it develops a complication as part of the research, the investigator has to pay for this. But a clinician, if it is an accepted complication, and he need not pay for the research if it is an accepted in the literature. So I won't go and say that if you develop any major complication, I'll be paying for it. They never say that in the treatment setting. But in an investigate, if you are doing a clinical trial, and if the person develops a complication because of your intervention, you are responsible to pay for it.
Sir, one of my personal question, which we have seen usually in our persons with mental illness, and also a couple of studies done in PGI Chandigarh also talks about this, telling that when the consent is taken invariably, in other illnesses, it is not an issue. In persons with mental illness, what happens is invariably the family members also play a major role, especially in females. They also participate. The family members like the husband, brother, father, mother, they also participate in decision making, whether they should be a subject in the research. Should we take the consent from them also, that we have examined, we have explained to all the family members? Is it a good practice, or no, we are violating of the patient?
I think this is a very good question, and this is something that we face. One of the things is that the relation between the parent and the children are not always the same. Some people are very closely attached to the father, whereas the others are trying to find ways how to get, I think, some funding from the father. And this is something which we can never understand. What is the relationship and how this will be used? And this has been actually made use of when you use an LAR for consent. A legally accepted or representative is used. Suppose that a person is taken for a mentally ill person, is very sick, and he gives a consent for research. And then later on, I think that The student brings in, one of the relatives brings in a bond paper and then some paper and then makes the patient sign. And then can he bring it in the court saying that this person was taken part in a research, he signed a consent form, and so that he was mentally competent at the day in which it was done. So this issue had actually happened, and I discussed with a few of the legal experts that I know, and honestly, they didn't have an answer for that thing. So it is always better that we will never know the intentions of I'm sorry to say that thing, what is the intentions of a legally acceptable representative. So I think that we assume that the people who do research want to benefit science. And I think it is in their mind to decide whether the person is trying to take advantage of this or whether the person is, whether they are actually cooperating with the thing. So I think that I won't be able to give a direct answer to say that whether we should. I think it should be left to your judgment and be prepared to face any legal consequences when it happens. Thank you.
One more question has come up, sir, with regard to children.
Suresh, can I ask a question?
Please, sir, please go ahead. Sir.
Can I ask?
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Anyway, hi to Narendran. Narendran, good old friend from All-India Institute, Dr. Mohandas.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. I was in psychiatry, you were in gastroenterology, we together, right? Now, this issue is of informed concern, especially in psychiatry. How informed is the informed concern? This is a pertinent question. How are you imparting the information? And there are umpteen studies. And how relevant is informed consent in psychiatry? These two issues we used to discuss in UNESCO bioethics. Incidentally, I am the training and skill director for UNESCO bioethics. We used to discuss. But as far as the research ethics is concerned, you're absolutely right. The client has to really understand and they have to communicate either way. Then only in research ethics, the client has to really agree. You have already talked about the some of the historical outline, including the later Nuremberg trial and the further on. Every revisions are there. Now, video consent, now bioethics people, we don't accept it. We were not accepting it. But because of the COVID situation, the telepsychiatry, etc., now in certain areas, I think we can. But in a real research ethics, sorry, we have to get the party to understand, communicate, and they have to be cognizant about what is being done, what not be done. There are basic principles, and in psychiatry, especially the decisional capacity has come down. So are they competent to do it? That is a question. There are answers for and answers against. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that yes, comprehension. This is a very major question. And how do you know that the person has understood what you have told? In a written informed consent, one of the ways to make the people who are going to the auditors know that the person has comprehended is that, let us say they take a procedure like colonoscopy. So the person asks, how much time will it take? So right on the margins, the person asks the duration of the trial. We have answered that it's 30 minutes. And then after some time, the person asks, will it be painful? Then you write, the person asks. So if you write some of the dialogues that you had with the patient on the margins, it gives an impression that the person has comprehended it. The best way to know whether he had comprehended is to give him a question after this thing and see whether he answers everything correctly. But we don't do those things. We will know how much painful, and that is the best method to give a questions. And many studies are there, as you rightly mentioned, that which have said that the comprehension ability is not 100% in every case. But one of the methods to make sure that they have comprehended is to, I think, explain it very, very clearly. And in psychiatry, there I talked to you about a study which has said that if there is an educational intervention for every research, they comprehend it better. That's all I can say. Anything else, Dr. Suresh?
Yeah, definitely, sir. This is what has been asked. Like whenever you do any clinical informed consent has been administered, ask questions back which are there in the informed consent, whether the patient has understood or the patient family members who are sitting next to them has understood. And so that we can say if they're not, if they're 50 to 60%, they're unable to answer, again, re-administer the informed consent, give the information, and if possible, give time to for them to digest the information, especially in research. They say that give the whole informed consent, even the part of the information which is part of the protocol to be given to the patient. They may take 2 days, 3 days, read, the family members will read, and then they get back after 3 days. You document that today they came, we have given the informed consent and also the information booklet ABCDEFGH, and they have taken to the home and they have come back after 3 days. These are the people were there. And again, these questions they are answered. It's a process where the informed consent is taken, and also the openly telling that yes, you can withdraw the consent anytime, any part of the during the trial has been given. Sir, one more question which has come up, sir. This is regarding child. Till what age, below what age you cannot take it for clinical drug trial is the question they have asked. Is it, I think Dr. Sirisha has asked, any minimum age for child below which child cannot be used for trial? Clinical trial is the question. So what is your response?
I think you may know about the famous Gadcharoli trial done in Gujarat. Now, even newborns have been included in clinical trials. So it's only the thing that the parent gives the consent. And sometimes when you go through the thing, and this Gadcharoli trial has been copied by people because the research from this trial has been copied in Iran and other countries because they thought that it was a good study, even though there are some questions about it. So even in newborns, studies have been done getting the consent from the parent. But if assent, it is usually above the age of 6 that you should get an assent from the patient. I think anything else, any legal aspects, Dr. Suresh, you may be in a better position.
But however, sir, the rules have clearly mentioned that assent inappropriate. They have said the wordings are not the 6 years. They have said matured children adolescent in appropriate places. They have said, so it is left to the interpretation of the ethics committee. But however, the ethics committee is now, earlier there was a question whether the ethics committee should be liable or not. Now ethics committee has also been brought under the rules. They cannot say that we are doing something great. No, they are also liable. They have to undergo training. They have, if they have given permission to conduct a study, they are responsible to see whether the study has been conducted properly. So in that way, it has been brought into the picture, sir. And the one of the other question has been, somebody has asked.
Dr. Suresh, yeah, just remind.
Okay, time. Okay, sir. So the last, the question is whether mental health, the state mental authority has been brought here. Is it, since it is administrative body, what they will do? Of course, the law of the land, when the Mental Health Care Act has been drafted, they felt that the clinical trial or any kind of research done, they did not, at that time, 2017, there was nothing to protect the persons with mental illness. Hence, they thought that there should be some overseeing body to do that. But anyhow, I was not, let me be very clear, I am not part of the drafting committee of Mental Health Care Act. I'm a part of rules. So I may not be able to answer on behalf of it, but during that time, that may be the reason I feel. I think any other questions can be asked directly.
Suresh, can I make 2 points if it is
Please
possible?
go ahead, sir. Please,
One,
please, sir.
Number one, in psychiatry, as you have rightly pointed, who really gives the consent? Because it is a shared process by the family. So, how will you delineate? That is what is happening in developing countries. That we do not have a clear-cut guideline, number one. Number two, the ethical committee. Who has to be the ethical committee members? There are definite guidelines. It is not from the hospital, your own people, one legal expert, one society person, etc., that we have to abide by. These are important things that we have to educate people. Secondly, here many of the places, even if you give the consent, nurses just write and their client doesn't understand. The third point is many of the consent questionnaire, informed consent questionnaire is so long and very cumbersome, very difficult worded. And I think that is the usual plea. We have to condense it. The last point in surgery, if you are taking a consent for an appendicitis, you can do that. But if you find a tumor, you have to take again a repeat consent. Otherwise, you are punishable. Thank you.
Sir, excellent point, sir. The 2 points what sir has mentioned very clearly, again, the clinical rules which has been published in 2019 clearly says, apart from ICMR guidelines, it also makes mandate 50% of the members in the ethics committee should be outside the organization. And whenever the decision is made with regard to pertaining to any study, 5 members are very mandatory. They have clearly mentioned who are those members should be there. Without their absence, even you may have any number, minimum 7 number, and should be in the ethics committee, but 50% should be outside the organization. And when a decision is taken, minimum 5 members, who are those legal representatives outside a person's mental illness, those people should be there. That has been clearly told, so we cannot go ahead with that. Second point, what sir also mentioned very clearly about the who will give the consent, whether the patient or the family members. Invariably, it is the patient will be considered if he has capacity. If he doesn't have capacity, invariably what we do is the family member after assessment of capacity. But I have been a part of many clinical trials in NIMHANS, and invariably, as sir said, it will be around 30 pages, 40 pages of informed consent with information as there in clinical drug trials. So in such a scenario, yes, sir, there are number of, since I'm a part of Telemedicine Society or Telemedicine Society, we have been, some portals are coming up where the informed consent, where the videos will be made for maybe for the clinical purpose, they are making videos where.
You got muted, Dr. Suresh. You're still on mute.
Okay, now there is a portals are coming up for especially clinical purposes for certain, like suppose ECT. What is the information to be given as IPS can come up with a video, or maybe in various languages, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes video, which the patient and the family members will go through it, and then the doctor also sits with them and then takes the consent. So a standardized format, maybe e-portal or maybe e-consent form, or a videos along with the standard literature which will be available, will be planned over a period of time. And the Telemedicine Society of India is working towards it with various organizations. Many private partners are coming into this picture, so that a standard consent form for especially clinical practices are being planned. So with this, now I hand it over to Dr. Ashok, the organizing chairperson, and also to the president. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity. And also Dr. Narendra Nathan has been wonderful, has been doing various studies, and he's been a part of various the committees. And thank you very much, sir, for being part of our this endeavor. And over to Dr. Ashok, sir.
Dr. Indu, you can continue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Narendra Nathan, sir, for that excellent talk and for the way you answered the questions. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Suresh Badamat, sir, for the moderating the session and for the brief presentation that you had. Thank you very much, sir. And now I hand over to Dr. Rajshekhar Vipata for the details of the launch of the brief course in psychiatric research. Thank you. Unmute yourselves.
So, Dr. Rajshekhar, you are not audible.
You're muted. Go on, Dr. Achikar. Yeah. You're not audible. Yeah. In order with Dr. Achekar's permission, if it's okay with the president, I will continue with the
Yes.
talk. I would be now coming to the actual point of sharing about the details of the course that we have formulated, and I hope to be able to share the screen with you all soon. Is my screen visible to everybody?
Slide is not visible. Yes. Now it is visible.
Thank you all. Thank you all for staying back a little longer than we had actually intended originally. And it's been wonderful to hear from all of you about the suggestions and the excellent advice you are given. Dr. Narendran Nathan, please accept our sincere thanks to you for that excellent presentation, and Dr. Suresh Padamat for sharing that session and also giving a number of valuable points that we should all keep in mind going forward with such a kind of course. I must say that Dr. Jagadish and Dr. Sudhakar in 2017, when they called me up and said that we're going to start something like the research capacity building course, I really didn't know what it was, but it sounded exciting. But it's taken almost 3 years for us to actually get to the point of actually running this course. There were challenges. We did conduct some programs for postgraduates, but we then realized that we needed money. And I must say, Dr. Sudhakar and Dr. Uday and later Dr. Kishan and Dr. Ramkrishnan have been incredibly supportive in trying to put this money together. And the EC of IPS South Zone has been very supportive. And it's been wonderful to have all of them come here today. The chief guest, Dr. Mohan Das's great advice on need to develop language editing, that itself has to be part of research training. The excellent suggestion given on by Dr. Suresh Kumar on needing to approach NMC and tell them about the lack of focus in psychiatry. I think Dr. Mohan Das made that point. Dr. Suresh Kumar describing the need for building passion in students and also offering his ongoing support to them and such courses. Dr. Jagadish highlighted importance of practitioners and research. There was a lot of focus on child psychiatry too. Thank you all for that. In the great focus on informed consent by our invited speakers, and Dr. Baramat has brought in the role of statutory authorities having a role in the informed consent process. So we have had a very good program, and we have kind of learned and felt inspired along the way today. I will take about 5 minutes to highlight the course that we wish to run from January onwards. What is the course like? I mean, we call it a brief course in psychiatry research. This will be something more than what would be covered for postgraduates, so that it's not really basic, but practitioners, the criteria for which will be described by Dr. Rajshekar Bibeta after me, so that practitioners of a particular level of maturity can appreciate the contents of the course and try to use it in their work. It will be a course that will introduce more clinical research in ongoing psychiatry work, a course that will help young psychiatrists conceptualize and take voluntary steps towards research in psychiatry. We think it will be over 12 to 13 sessions, and it should probably start from late January and go on till some point in May. There will be basics of research and statistics certainly in the course. There will be focus on observation studies in particular. highlight the potential for research in clinical psychiatry in India during this course. This point has been made very clearly by a number of speakers today. I will also help them in reviewing key studies, particularly from Indian point of view, and help in drawing conclusions so that they can decide on planning what exactly needs to be done next. We hope to include how to develop research ideas and help with writing proposals and also publication skills. We hope to organize interactions with successful researchers. We have a mentorship program on the annual. We are yet to think through the details. I'm sure as we continue with the course, some of these issues will become more clear. We'll be inviting applications to reach us by 10th January. I'm sorry, there is very little time. Looking at the calendar of the IPS South Zone, since we are actually starting sometime in December, we'll be giving less time. Hopefully, the current reach via social media will help us. The page on IPS South Zone website will go live tomorrow. That will give more or less all the details I'm mentioning now will come there. We'll scrutinize and shortlist as per criteria that will be presented next by my colleague, Dr. Rajshekar. We will attempt good representation across states. We don't want to kind of draw into exact democratization, but we are very sure that there will be good representation across states. We promise you that. The applicants list will be announced by 20th January, and the first session is expected to be in the last week of January. Of course, we would go by the CBC decision, and the EC ratification of this would be final. But we hope there will be excitement and a lot more people will want to participate. And committees over the coming years will keep having a pool of people wanting to take part in this course. There would be a modest fees charge for the course. We'll be announcing it on the website by tomorrow. There will be ongoing assignments and evaluation. Selected candidates are expected to attend all sessions. The sessions can be viewed by all members, although they may not be able to actively participate in the deliberations, which will be more specifically limited to the selected candidates. The candidates will be expected to develop a research proposal as part of the program. The participation and the proposal will be graded to obtain a final list of top 5 candidates who will be felicitated in the subsequent IPSOCON. Top 3 participants will be able to receive modest research funding support to start small studies. This is how we are conceptualized, keeping in mind the amount of funds that has been generated, and the funds has to also continue for subsequent years. We need support of experienced researchers to conduct this program as faculty and probably even later on participate as mentors to the trainees. We need support of all members of the IPS South Zone. The plans are evolving. We look forward to suggestions to improve the process. We'll be sharing the email of the Research Capacity Building Committee along with all the announcements by tomorrow. So kindly feel free to send your suggestions. Research funding supports are being worked out. This will be announced in due course. Like I said earlier, announcement of this course and other details will be on the IPS South Zone website by evening of tomorrow. And the link for this has already been kindly created by the website webmaster, Dr. Mohan Sunil Kumar. Hopefully, when you do click on that by tomorrow evening, you'll be able to see all the details of this course. We look forward to having a lot of enthusiastic applications, and we really look forward to launching this course. A great many thanks to all of you who are gathered today here to make us feel that this is an important initiative and extending your support and all encouragement. Thank you very much. There could be some time for a few questions subsequently, but probably we will go ahead immediately with Dr. Rajshekar presenting some of the criteria for selecting the applicants. And after that, a small little, maybe a few minutes on how we are thinking of research funding. And then there'll be little time for question and answers. We hope to wrap this by 2 p.m. Thank you all for staying with us. Dr. Rajshekar.
So you can share it, sir.
Yes, yes. You are audible.
Yeah. So the host has to disable the participant. I am disabled. I cannot share my screen. The host has to disable my screen sharing.
Sorry, I get your point. I think it's my
Yeah.
I need to come off the screen sharing.
Ali?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Respected President and my respected seniors and dear friends. Like on behalf of the RCBC Research Capacity Building Committee, like what Sir said, we have announced the launch of the brief course in psychiatric research. My job is to tell about the criteria which we are going to follow.
You could
Make it.
go to slideshow. Go to
Yes,
slideshow. In any case, there are two more.
Yeah. So the criteria for applying for this course, we have set aside two sets of criteria. The mandatory criteria are the applicant should be at least, they should be less than or equal to 40 years of age. Means those who are more than 40 years of age won't be in a position to participate. Our basic idea is to encourage young researchers, and they should have a minimum of 2 years of experience post-graduation. For example, if somebody has finished his MD in April 2018, so by April 2020, after that he'll be eligible to participate as a applicant. Third is, one of the important aims of our society is to increase IPS South Zone membership. So we actually have made IPS South Zone membership as a mandatory criterion, but for the time being, we are even going to consider those who have applied for the IPS South Zone membership. So only those who are fulfilling these mandatory criteria, they are really required to submit their detailed CV. We will be, we don't want the full CV. We are going to actually mail this headings under which the participants are supposed to submit their CV. And another thing is they have to declare their statement of interest, basically meaning why they want to do this course. What is their short and long-term plan? Why they want to join this course? So all those who are fulfilling these mandatory criteria, after the committee will go through their CV and statement of interest, then these are the desirable criteria. We are going to give preference to those who are attached to medical colleges and private institutes. Having said that, we are also planning to encourage consultants who are into practice. So that's why we mentioned it as desirable criterion, and publications in index journals. So the criteria for indexing and as well as authorship will be as per the MCI guidelines, like which is getting updated. The latest one was updated in February 2020. So the indexing and authorship in those journals will be considered as publications. And third is conference presentation. That also will be given weightage. So these are the desirable criteria, but the mandatory criteria are the most important ones. Only those we request the participants like to see that they fulfill these mandatory criteria before applying. Thank you. Now I hand over the president to the proceedings to Dr. Ramakrishna, who is the president. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction and the course details. And I have one suggestion.
If I can just, sorry, Dr. Ramakrishnan, to intrude. Dr. Kannan would probably make a couple of lines of funding what we are thinking. That will complete the process.
Yes.
You're not audible, Dr. Kannan. Sorry, Dr. Kannan, we cannot hear you. For some reason, it's not coming through. Can you try again? No.
Can you highlight what he intends to talk?
Yeah, I will just put it in a couple of sentences, sir. Yeah, it is. We are aware that the corpus has kind of reached a modest amount, so when we talk about research funding, we are not looking for major study funding at this point in time. Hopefully in 5 to 10 years time, South Zone IPS will get there. At this point in time, it will be modest amounts, definitely somewhat lesser than probably ₹1,00,000. And that's why we have said we may be in a position to fund not more than 3 studies. And even these studies would be based on the performance of the selected applicants in the course. Now that is the crucial actual criteria. Just to once again mention that we are more keen on observational studies, and of course that will also be mentioned in the as a criteria for in the application for the application to the course itself. We are keen on observational studies, and it should be something very small for sake of as far as the funding requested from South Zone is concerned. All this will be increasingly specified during the running of the course, because the proposal will be something that will be generated as part of the training that happens during the course. But we thought it would be a good point to mention that the funding is going to be modest, and it will be for the top 3 persons who take part in the course. Hopefully over time, we'll be able to do more and more of this and probably go to larger amounts also. So that's it, Dr. Ramakrishnan, from our side. If you could permit us to, in maybe for a few minutes, 3 to 3 minutes at least, to get some feedbacks, especially on the criteria and the process that we have highlighted from the seniors here, we'd really appreciate that.
My first is can you make it as 1 year after post graduation? That is one this thing I request. Maybe it can broad base the people. Those who are affiliated to institutions, they can maybe who are joined as a SAR, they can be permitted. That is one request from me. Any other questions? And one request to Dr. Suresh Badamat and team RCBC. Sir, this informed consent is again a big thing which many people have different versions of informed consent as far as is ECT or RTMS and other procedures are there. If you can, Dr. Badamat can give us the proper informed consent. Other members of South Zone may be benefited, and we can follow up the Niemann's model of informed consent, sir. So that is my request to Dr. Suresh Badamat. Dr. Badamat?
Right, sir. I think we will. One is Niemann's. We have already the consent forms. One is that can be directly adopted. Other one is making videos of those information which we give can be formed maybe first in English, and then we convert it into local languages which can be used, adopted by the IPS South Zone, so that this is the format which is translated and it is available, so that if any legal problem occurs, you can say we have adopted this. This was the video was displayed, or the video was sent to them. They watched, and these questions were taken. So that becomes a legally valid format where required information which has to be given has been given, which has been accepted by the whole body of IPS and demands, would be a wonderful way to go ahead. And this has been started in various places, sir. It will take time. Most probably, I think we can be the initiative. We can start from IPS South Zone only, sir.
Yes, sir.
Especially for clinical practices, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you take up this challenge and do it, sir?
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. We'll definitely do it, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind of you, sir. You have been all along supportive, and will enhance our clinical thing, and we'll let the people not suffer because of improper informed consent, because that is legally implicated. People don't understand the legal implications. That is the problem. We have to sensitize our consultant to go for evidence-based practice as well as proper informed consent. That is one thing, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I think I have to thank Dr. Narendranath Ji for your wonderful presentation on informed consent, followed by Dr. And I put to you team for taking such an important area which so far has not been opened. The Pandora box is now open, and I am sure that we will support, and I promise the IPS will support in all possible ways for your success of this endeavor. That is our promise, sir. I pray God for all of you to have health and happiness and energy to serve the needy people, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ashok, Dr. Indu, Dr. Nageshwar Rao, Dr. Kannan, and Dr. Rajsekhar. He is also very, very keen on research. Without research, I cannot live, sir. That's what he has been telling. So that type of passion these people have got, and I hope the IPS South Zone Research Committee is in a good hand. Let them continue for another 1 year term and complete this thing, all technical glitches that can be possible. That the request I have put to Dr. Ashok, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for our EC members. I thank the members of IPS, delegates who have visited and staying till 2 o'clock in Sunday. And I have to thank Dr. Mohandas, Dr. Suresh Kumar, and our architects of RCPC, Dr. Sudhakar, and request all of you to guide us to improve the facilities and spread the message across. You motivate other students and other faculties of medical colleges to join this program. That will be my one request, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Kannan, Dr. Ashok.
No, but thank you for covering the statement of thanks to all people who are gathered here and all those who have supported us today, sir. Sincere word of thanks once again to the President and the EC for permitting us to take this activity forward, and sincere and warm thanks to all of you who have actually helped us think through this process today. Please feel free to send us all your suggestions. We really crave for it, and we hope as we put forward processes and procedures in place for something so new, we would really be looking forward to the guidance from all of you who are gathered here today and all the members of South Zone. Thank you everyone for making today's program possible. Special word of thanks to the invited speakers, Dr. Narendra Nathan and Dr. Suresh Padamath, who really made us think about this concept they've informed us at great depth, and we'll certainly take it up in all sincerity. Thank you all, and wish you all a great new year ahead. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, sir.
Dr. Saji, sir, we tried to contact you, sir. We couldn't trace you.
Yeah, I'm here. I joined little late, sir.
No, sir, before this, sir.
Yeah, I know, sir. There was some difficulty to schedule this.
Or else we tried to put you into this program.
Yes, sir.
We tried, but sorry, we missed you in the this thing.
There will be a great year ahead.
Thank you, sir. You have to bless us, because one who initially started in 2013 something about the research and all, we wanted to honor you and we tried to contact you, but we couldn't get it.
Okay, sir.
Sorry, sir. Next time we'll.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.